Get off the bag, monkey. That's not a tree.
Victor Shaw didn't stop. Fist hit leather. Again. Again. Tyler stepped closer.
You deaf too? I said get off!
I heard you.
Victor caught the bag, looked him dead in the eyes.
I just don't care.
Nobody talked to Tyler Brooks like that. Black belt. Biggest name in the county. Phones came out. Tyler shoved the bag aside.
You got a mouth for a stray. Let's see if you got hands on the mat right now for laughs.
Victor peeled off his wraps. Underneath, scarred knuckles and a faded USMC tattoo he never talked about. Students circled up. Somebody hit record. Tyler cracked his neck and grinned. He didn't know the old man had spent 30 years teaching Marines how to break people exactly like him. Victor Shaw's alarm went off at 4:45 every morning. Not because he said it. His body just knew. 30 years of pre-dawn reveille had carved the habit into his bones. The alarm clock on the nightstand, wind-up, no screen, no snooze, was just a formality. He was already sitting on the edge of the bed by the time it rang, feet flat on cold hardwood, fingers working the stiffness out of his knuckles one by one. The house was small. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen with a window that faced east, so the first light always hit the counter where he made his coffee. Black, no sugar. Same chipped mug every day. The one with the Marine Corps emblem Ellen had bought him at a yard sale 11 years ago, back when she still thought it was funny to surprise him with military junk. Ellen had been gone 3 years. Pancreatic cancer. Fast and cruel, the way the worst things always are. Victor didn't talk about it. He kept her reading glasses in the drawer next to the coffee filters. He kept her garden alive, barely, but alive. He kept her side of the bed made, even though nobody slept there. He kept moving. That was the only trick he knew. By 5:15, he was out the door. Ridgefield, Oregon sat in a shallow valley between 2 ridges of Douglas fir, the kind of town where you could run 3 miles and see maybe 4 cars. Victor ran the same loop every morning, down Maple, past the elementary school, along the creek trail where the blackberries grew wild in summer, up the hill behind the Lutheran church and back. 3.2 miles. He'd measured it once with the odometer on his truck. Never checked again. Didn't need to. His legs knew the distance the same way his lungs knew the air. He didn't run fast anymore. His left knee had opinions about that. But he ran steady, and he ran every day. And when he came back and stood in the driveway with steam rising off his shoulders in the cold morning air, he looked like exactly what he was. A man built for hard use who refused to let time win. The gym opened at 6. Victor was there by 6:30. Ridgefield Community Gym was not a gym in any modern sense. No touchscreens, no smoothie bar, no mirrors everywhere so people could admire themselves between sets. Just a converted warehouse on 3rd Street with rubber floors that squeaked underfoot, iron plates older than most of its members, 2 squat racks with chipped paint, and a heavy bag in the back corner that smelled like decades of sweat and leather conditioner. Victor had his spot. Everyone knew it. The heavy bag, a pull-up bar bolted to the wall, and a flat bench he used for stretches that looked strange to anyone watching. Deep hip openers, wrist rotations, neck bridges that made people wince just looking at them. Movements that didn't come from any fitness magazine. Movements that came from somewhere else entirely. Nobody asked about it. That was the deal with Victor. You could nod, wave, say good morning. He'd nod back. Maybe a few words about the weather or the Blazers. But his past was a locked room, and he didn't hand out keys. The town had theories. Dale Perkins at the hardware store figured he'd been a drill sergeant. Nancy Wallace at the post office swore it was intelligence, because quiet men always are. The kids at the high school just called him the old guy at the gym. A few of the regulars had noticed the tattoo on his forearm, faded green ink, something with an eagle. But when they asked, Victor just said, "Old mistake," and went back to his pull-ups. The truth was simpler, and bigger than any of them guessed. But Victor had a rule about that, one he'd carried since his first deployment. The ones who talk about it the most usually did the least. So he said nothing. He hit the bag. He did his pull-ups, 12 sets, strict form, no kipping, even at 63. He stretched in ways that made his joints whisper instead of scream. And when he wrapped his hands every morning, he wrapped them the way he'd wrapped them for 3 decades. Quick, tight, loop between each knuckle, tuck at the wrist. The kind of wrap that had nothing to do with boxing and everything to do with keeping your fist intact when you hit something that wasn't a bag. Nobody noticed. Nobody needed to. He was just the quiet old man in the corner, and that was fine with Victor Shaw. He had nothing left to prove. But Ridgefield was a small town, and small towns have a way of putting people in the same room who were never meant to meet. Tyler Brooks had been the best at everything for as long as he could remember, and he made sure everyone else remembered it too. He started Taekwondo at 7, won his first regional at 12. By 16, he was competing at nationals, and by 19, he'd earned his 3rd-degree black belt, the youngest in the state of Oregon. The local paper ran a front-page story. His mother framed it. Tyler posted it on every platform he had and pinned it to the top. By 23, he opened his own dojo, Brooks Elite Martial Arts. Prime location on Main Street, right between the dental office and the real estate agency. Glass front, LED sign. A banner across the window that read, "Undefeated," in letters you could see from the highway. The place did well. Not because Tyler was a great teacher, he was adequate, but because he was a great performer. He knew how to fill a room, knew how to make a spinning hook kick look like it belonged in a movie, knew how to stand in front of a camera and say the exact thing that made people click, share, and subscribe. 200,000 followers on social media, sponsorship deals with 3 supplement brands, a highlight reel that auto-played on the dojo's homepage, Tyler breaking boards, Tyler winning trophies, Tyler shadowboxing in slow motion with dramatic music underneath. His students loved him. Most of them were teenagers and young men who wanted to be him. They called him Coach T and laughed at his jokes even when they weren't funny. They filmed his sparring sessions and posted them with captions like, "Don't mess with the best," and fire emojis. Tyler ate it up. Every like was a meal. Every comment was dessert. But underneath the highlight reel, there was something Tyler never showed anyone. He'd never been in a real fight. Not once. Not in a parking lot. Not in a bar. Not in any situation where the rules weren't printed on a poster on the wall. Every punch he'd ever thrown had been inside a ring, with a referee, a point system, and a very clear understanding that nobody was trying to actually hurt anyone. He didn't know that about himself yet. He thought competition was combat. He thought trophies meant toughness. He thought the fact that nobody in his weight class had beaten him meant nobody could. That's the thing about being undefeated. It feels like armor. Right up until the moment it isn't. 3 months ago, Tyler had moved his advanced class to Ridgefield Community Gym. The dojo was getting renovated. New mats, new mirrors, a content studio in the back, and he needed space. The community gym was cheap, had open floor area, and most importantly, it had an audience. Regular people who'd stop their workouts to watch his students drill. Content gold. Tyler noticed Victor Shaw on his very first day there. Hard to miss him. The old black man in the gray t-shirt hitting the heavy bag in the back corner like it owed him something personal. Slow, deliberate shots. Nothing flashy. The kind of rhythm that said habit, not training. At least that's what Tyler assumed. "Check out Grandpa," he'd said to his top student, a 20-year-old named Jake Whitmore. "Somebody should tell him this isn't a nursing home." Jake had laughed. Because Jake always laughed when Tyler wanted him to. Tyler watched Victor for a few more seconds, watched the way the old man moved around the bag, feet always underneath him, shoulders always square, chin always tucked. There was something about it that Tyler couldn't quite name. Something that sat in the back of his brain like a splinter he couldn't reach. He shook it off, went back to his drills, posted a video of himself doing a triple kick combo with the caption, "Levels to this game." But he kept glancing at the corner. And every morning after that, when Tyler walked into the gym with his crew and his camera, Victor Shaw was already there. Same corner, same bag, same quiet, steady rhythm that never changed and never stopped. It bothered Tyler. He didn't know why. Maybe it was because Victor never looked at him, never stopped to watch the drills, never flinched when Tyler's students key-eyed loud enough to rattle the windows. The old man just hit the bag, did his pull-ups, stretched in ways that didn't make sense, and left. Everyone else in that gym watched Tyler Brooks. Victor Shaw didn't even glance. And for a man who needed every eye in the room, that was unforgivable. It started small, the way cruelty always does. A comment here, a look there. Tyler testing the water to see how far he could push before the old man pushed back. First week, it was just noise, Tyler talking loud to his students while Victor worked the bag. See, that's what happens when you train without a coach. You just slap leather for 20 years and think you're doing something. His students laughed on cue. Victor didn't turn around. Second week, Tyler got closer. He started running his drills on the mats nearest to Victor's corner, not because he needed the space, the gym had plenty, because he wanted Victor to watch. And Victor still wouldn't watch. "Yo, Grandpa," Tyler said it mid-drill, casual, like it was nothing. "You ever throw a kick? Or just hands?" Victor pulled the bag back to center. "I do fine." "You do fine." Tyler repeated it to his students like it was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. "The man does fine. Hear that? That's what my grandma says about her bingo game." More laughter. Victor said nothing. Kept hitting. Third week, Tyler dropped the playful mask. It was a Thursday morning. Gym was half full. Tyler had just finished a demonstration, a spinning heel kick that cracked the pad so loud it echoed off the warehouse walls. His students clapped. A couple of regulars nodded. Tyler ate it up, the way he always did. Then he looked at Victor. The old man was stretching, those strange, precise movements, the hip openers, the wrist rotations, moving like a man who'd been taught to move, not a man who'd figured it out from a magazine. Tyler walked over, stood 2 feet away, close enough to make it personal. "Real talk, old man. What are you even doing here every day? You're not getting stronger. You're not getting faster. You're just here." Victor looked up. "Same as you. Working out." Nah, it's not the same." Tyler crouched down so they were eye to eye. "See, I'm building something. You're just killing time until the clock runs out." Victor held his gaze, didn't blink. "You done?" "Almost." Tyler stood up and pulled out his phone. "Hey, hold that stretch for me. My followers love a good what not to do clip." He actually pointed the camera at Victor, actually hit record. And Victor, for the first time in 3 weeks, stopped what he was doing. He didn't stand up fast. He didn't raise his voice. He just unwound from the stretch, rose to his feet, and looked at Tyler with an expression that made Jake Whitmore take a step back without knowing why. "Put the phone away." Tyler lowered it an inch. "Or what?" "Or you'll find out what I've been doing here every day." The sentence hung in the air like smoke. Tyler stared at Victor. Victor stared back. 2 men, 36 years apart, standing so close they could smell each other's sweat. Tyler pocketed the phone. "Whatever, man." He turned to walk away, then stopped, turned back. And the thing that Tyler Brooks did next was what Tyler Brooks always did when he felt small. He got loud. "You know what? I'm tired of watching you waste space in here. You want to prove you're not just some washed-up old-timer? Then do something about it." He said it loud enough for the whole gym to hear. 20 people stopped what they were doing. Weights settled onto racks. Treadmills kept humming. But nobody was looking at screens anymore. "Tomorrow morning," Tyler said, "right here, on the mats, you and me. I'll even let you pick the rules." He spread his arms. "Unless you'd rather just keep hitting a bag that can't hit back." Victor looked at Tyler for a long time, long enough that the silence became its own kind of answer. Then he picked up his water bottle, turned around, and walked toward the door. He didn't say yes. He didn't say no. Tyler took that as a win. He clapped his hands, turned to his students and said, "See? All bark." Jake posted the clip that night. Caption: "Coach T just called out the old guy at the gym tomorrow. It's gonna be funny." It got 12,000 views before midnight. What none of them knew was that Victor Shaw went home that night, sat in his kitchen with his black coffee, and stared at his hands for a very long time. He hadn't said yes. Not yet. But something in the way Tyler had spoken to him, not the insults, not the camera, but the word "washed up," had opened a door he'd kept locked for years. Victor almost didn't go back. He woke at 4:45, same as always, made his coffee, stood at the kitchen window and watched the first light hit the fir trees on the ridge. Ellen's garden was dying again. The basil had gone brown. The tomato cage was leaning sideways like it had given up. He should fix that. He should do a lot of things. He thought about the gym, about Tyler's voice, about the phone pointed at his face like a weapon, about the word "washed up," and the way it had sat in his chest all night like a coal that wouldn't cool. He thought about a conversation he'd had 20 years ago with a Marine named Corporal Denny Holt, who'd asked him why they trained hand-to-hand when they had rifles. Victor had said, "Because someday someone's going to be close enough to touch you, and the rifle won't matter. What matters then is what your hands know." His hands knew plenty. That was the problem. He laced up his shoes, drove to the gym, walked through the door at 6:32. The mats were already set up. Tyler was there. Early for the first time since he'd started using the gym. He had the blue sparring mats arranged in a square 20 feet by 20 feet. His students, 8 of them, stood along the edges in their white doughboks, phones out, ready to document whatever was about to happen. Word had spread. Jake's video had done its job. The gym was full. Not just regulars, people from town who never set foot in the place. Dale Perkins from the hardware store, 2 baristas from the coffee shop on Oak Street, a group of high school kids who'd skipped first period and didn't even pretend to have another reason for being there. 30-plus people, all waiting to watch a black belt spar an old man for laughs. Tyler saw Victor walk in and grinned like a kid on Christmas morning. "There he is!" Tyler clapped his hands. "The man of the hour. I was starting to think you'd bailed on me." Victor set his bag down by the wall. Didn't respond. "Look, here's the deal," Tyler said, addressing the crowd as much as Victor. "Friendly spar, 3 rounds, 2 minutes each. Point system. Clean strikes to the body and head. No takedowns, no grappling, no groundwork. My house, my rules." He said it with the confidence of a man who had written the rules to favor himself and expected no objection. Victor unzipped his bag, pulled out a pair of old hand wraps, faded red, fraying at the edges. He started wrapping. Slow, methodical. Loop between each knuckle, tuck at the wrist. The same wrap he'd done 10,000 times before. "You hear me, old man? Point system. Tap if it hurts." Victor finished his left hand, started his right. "I heard you." "Good. Then let's make it fun." Tyler turned to his students. "Somebody get the timer up, 2-minute rounds. And make sure you're recording. This one's going on the page." Victor pulled off his hoodie. Gray t-shirt underneath, same as always. The faded USMC tattoo on his forearm caught the fluorescent light. Nobody in the crowd knew what it meant. Nobody thought to ask. He stepped onto the mat. No guard. Hands at his sides. He looked at Tyler the way a man looks at a math problem. Not with anger, not with fear, just with quiet calculation. Tyler bounced into the center. Fresh dobok, 4th-degree black belt, tied tight. He threw 3 shadow kicks in rapid succession. Fast, sharp, the kind of movement that made his highlight reels look like action movies. The crowd murmured approval. "Whenever you're ready, old man." Victor rolled his neck, popped his jaw, and then he did something that made Tyler's smile flicker for just a half second. He stepped forward and changed his stance. It wasn't boxing, it wasn't karate, taekwondo, or anything Tyler had ever taught. Victor's feet went shoulder-width apart, knees slightly bent, weight centered perfectly between them. His hands came up, open palms, not fists, fingers loose. Elbows pinned tight to his ribs. Chin tucked behind his left shoulder, eyes locked on Tyler's chest, not his face. It was a combat stance. The kind that isn't designed to score points. The kind that's designed to end things. Jake Whitmore, standing at the edge of the mats with his phone raised, felt something cold settle in his stomach. He'd never seen that stance before, but something about the stillness of it, the efficiency, the absence of anything wasted, made him want to put his phone down. He didn't. Nobody did. The timer beeped, and Tyler Brooks threw the first kick of his life that wasn't inside a tournament bracket. To understand what happened next, you have to understand what came before. Not before that morning. Before everything. Victor Shaw was born in 1963 in a part of Baltimore that didn't make the postcards. Sandtown, Winchester. Row houses with peeling paint and plywood over the windows. Corner stores with bulletproof glass between you and the cashier. His mother worked 2 jobs, cleaning rooms at a Holiday Inn during the day, stocking shelves at a grocery store until midnight. His father left when Victor was 4. No note, no forwarding address, just a closet with empty hangers, and a kid who learned early that some people just disappear. Victor was big for his age, and quiet by nature, which in Sandtown meant one of 2 things. You either became invisible, or you became a target. Victor was both. He got through high school the way a man gets through a rainstorm. Head down, moving forward, not looking up until it was over. The day he graduated, he walked straight to the recruiting office on North Avenue and signed his name on a dotted line. United States Marine Corps. He was 18 years old, weighed 152 pounds, and had never been on an airplane. Boot camp at Paris Island broke him the way it was designed to. Down to nothing, then built back up into something harder. Victor didn't just survive it, he was good at it. Good at the discipline, good at the silence, good at the part where someone screamed in your face for 30 straight seconds and you stood still and took it. Because he'd been doing exactly that his whole life. But it was the combatives program that changed everything. The Marine Corps Martial Arts Program. MCMAP. A fighting system built not for sport, not for competition, not for highlight reels. Built for one purpose only: to turn a human being into the most efficient close-quarters weapon possible. Victor took to it like a man who'd been waiting his whole life for permission to be dangerous. He learned joint manipulation, how to control a man's entire body through one wrist. He learned choke systems, blood chokes that put someone unconscious in 4 seconds, air chokes that made them panic in 2. He learned takedowns that worked on concrete, in mud, in the dark, in full body armor. He learned how to disarm a knife at close range, how to break an elbow joint with 2 pounds of pressure in the right direction, how to use a man's own momentum to put him on the ground before he knew he was falling. And underneath all of it, he learned the philosophy: minimum force, maximum control. You don't fight to prove something. You fight to end something. By 25, Victor was an instructor. By 30, he was a senior instructor, running the combatives curriculum at Marine Corps Base Quantico. By 40, he had trained over 4,000 Marines, men and women who went on to serve in Iraq, Afghanistan, and a dozen other places whose names never made the evening news. He deployed twice himself, Kuwait in '91, Fallujah in 2004. He didn't talk about either one. The scar on his jaw came from the second deployment. He told Ellen it was a car accident. She pretended to believe him. They both knew the deal. Over 3 decades, Victor earned the highest MCM AP belt, 6th degree. A tan belt with a red tab that fewer than 100 living Marines held at any given time. He could have taught at any military academy in the country, could have written books, done seminars, built a brand the way men with lesser credentials had done. Instead, he retired at 58, moved to Ridgefield with Ellen, bought a small house with a garden and a kitchen window that faced east, put his uniforms in a box in the garage, put his belt in a drawer he never opened, let the calluses on his knuckles soften, but not disappear. And he never told a single person in town what he'd done for 30 years. Not because he was ashamed, not because he was hiding, because Victor Shaw believed that what a man has done should live in his hands, not in his mouth. If you needed to tell people what you were, you probably weren't it anymore. So he hit the bag, did his pull-ups, wrapped his hands the old way, and let the world think he was just an old man in a gray t-shirt who didn't belong on anybody's mat. But now he was standing on a blue mat across from a 27-year-old black belt who had never once been hit by someone who meant it. And the timer had just beeped. Tyler came out fast. Spinning back kick, full rotation. The kind of kick that ended fights in tournaments. Heel snapping toward Victor's ribs at a speed that made someone in the crowd gasp. Victor stepped left, 6 inches. The heel whistled past his stomach, close enough to ripple his t-shirt. Tyler didn't pause. He followed with a jab cross combination. Textbook. Fast. Snapping his fists like whips. Victor's head moved. Just his head. Slight tilts, 2 inches each direction. The punches passing through the space where his face had been 1/10 of a second earlier. He didn't throw back. Didn't counter. Just moved. Tyler reset. Bounced on his toes, threw a front kick to test the range. Victor parried it with his open palm, redirecting the leg sideways without effort, like turning a doorknob. "Come on," Tyler said. "You gonna fight or just dodge?" Victor said nothing. His hands stayed up, open palms, elbows tight, eyes on Tyler's chest. Tyler attacked again, this time a combination he'd drilled 10,000 times. Lead roundhouse to the body, switch kick to the head, back fist. 3 strikes in under 2 seconds. Fast enough to overwhelm anyone in his weight class. Victor slipped the roundhouse by pulling his hips back, ducked the switch kick by bending his knees 3 inches. Caught the back fist mid-flight, not blocked it, caught it. His hand closed around Tyler's fist like a vice, held it for 1 full second, then released it with a gentle push that sent Tyler stumbling sideways. The crowd went quiet. Not the polite quiet of people watching a sparring match. The deep, uncomfortable quiet of people watching something they don't understand. Tyler's smile was gone. He looked at his fist, the one Victor had caught, like it belonged to someone else. "Lucky," he muttered. He reset his stance, shook out his hands. Round 2 of his attack came harder, angrier. A flying knee, Tyler's signature move, the one that had ended 11 straight tournament fights. He launched off his back foot, drove his knee toward Victor's solar plexus with 210 pounds of momentum behind it. Victor didn't retreat. He stepped into it. His left hand caught Tyler's knee at the joint. His right hand found Tyler's collar. In one fluid motion, a motion that had no wasted movement, no flash, nothing that any camera would call dramatic, He redirected Tyler's momentum sideways and swept his plant foot. Tyler hit the mat. Hard. Flat on his back, the air punching out of his lungs in a sound the whole gym heard. For 3 seconds, nobody breathed. Tyler stared at the ceiling. The fluorescent lights buzzed above him. He could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. He could hear the silence of 30 people who had come to watch him win and were now watching something else entirely. He scrambled to his feet, face red, not from pain, from something worse. From the first crack in the only thing that had ever made him feel like he mattered. "The hell was that?" Tyler's voice was higher now, tighter. "You can't grapple. I said no grappling." Victor stood in the center of the mat. Same stance, same open hands. He hadn't moved from his position. His breathing hadn't changed. "That wasn't grappling," Victor said. Quiet, almost gentle. "That was balance." Someone in the crowd let out a low whistle. Someone else whispered, "Did you get that?" 3 phones were already uploading. Tyler wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. He looked at his students. They were supposed to be cheering. They were supposed to be filming a highlight. Instead, they stood with their phones up and their mouths slightly open, like men watching a car accident in slow motion. Jake Whitmore's camera hand was shaking. He didn't know why. He'd seen Tyler spar 100 times. He'd never seen Tyler on the floor. Tyler turned back to Victor. Something had shifted behind his eyes. The showmanship was gone. The performance was gone. What was left was the thing underneath. The thing Tyler never let anyone see. Fear. Not fear of getting hurt. Fear of being ordinary. He raised his guard, tighter this time, less flash. His feet moved differently, shorter steps, more cautious. For the first time in his life, Tyler Brooks was fighting someone he wasn't sure he could beat. And Victor saw it, saw the shift, saw the fear settle into Tyler's shoulders like frost. He'd seen it 1,000 times before, on the faces of recruits in Quantico, on the faces of men in combat, on the faces of anyone who had just realized the gap between what they believed about themselves and what was true. Victor almost felt sorry for him. Almost. The timer beeped. End of round 1. Tyler walked to his corner. Nobody handed him water. Nobody said a word. His students just stood there, phones down for the first time since the spar began, looking at their coach like they were seeing him clearly for the first time. Victor didn't go to a corner. He stayed in the center of the mat, rolled his shoulders, waited. Round 2 was about to start, and it was going to be worse. Round 2 started different. Tyler didn't bounce, didn't showboat, didn't throw a single warm-up kick. He walked to the center of the mat the way a man walks into a room where he knows bad news is waiting. Slow, stiff, already bracing for it. Victor met him there. Same stance, same open palms, same steady breathing that hadn't changed once since the spar began. For 5 seconds, neither man moved. The gym was so quiet you could hear the clock on the wall ticking and the hum of the vending machine by the entrance. 30+ people holding their breath, phones raised, waiting for something they couldn't name but knew was coming. Tyler threw first. A jab. Fast, clean, technically perfect, the kind of jab that had scored him hundreds of tournament points. Victor parried it with his right palm, not slapped it away, redirected it. Tyler's fist sailed past Victor's ear, and before Tyler could retract it, Victor's left hand was already on Tyler's wrist. What happened next took less than 2 seconds. Victor stepped his right foot behind Tyler's lead leg. His left hand pulled Tyler's wrist down and across his own body. His right hand found Tyler's shoulder, and with a motion that used Tyler's own forward momentum against him, Victor executed a hip throw, A textbook osotogari modified for close-quarters combat that lifted Tyler clean off his feet and put him on the mat so hard the sound echoed off the warehouse walls like a gunshot. Tyler rolled sideways, mouth open, gasping for air that wasn't there. Pushed himself to his knees. His dobok was bunched at the shoulder. His black belt had come loose, the knot half unraveled. "Stay down," someone in the crowd said, not mockingly, concerned. The way you'd say it to someone walking toward the edge of something they couldn't see. Tyler didn't stay down. He stood, retied his belt with hands that shook badly enough for the front row to notice, and then he did the one thing Victor had been quietly waiting for. The thing that always happened when ego took control and training fell apart. He charged. No technique, no combination, no strategy beyond forward motion. Just 210 pounds of humiliation moving in a straight line, with nothing but anger behind it. A wild haymaker that started somewhere near Tyler's hip and swung upward toward Victor's jaw with every ounce of power and 0 ounces of control. Victor stepped inside the arc of the punch. Inside, where the fist had no power and no reach. Inside, where Tyler's entire right flank was exposed like a door left open. Inside, where a man trained in Marine close-quarters combat was the most dangerous thing in any room on Earth. Victor's left hand caught Tyler's swinging arm at the elbow joint. His right arm wrapped under Tyler's armpit and across his chest. In one motion, smooth, efficient, almost gentle in its mechanical precision, Victor pivoted his hips and redirected Tyler's momentum into a standing arm lock that bent Tyler's elbow the wrong direction by exactly 2 degrees. Not enough to injure, not enough to cause lasting damage, just enough to make Tyler's entire body seize up like every muscle had received the same message at the same time. Stop. Tyler screamed. Not a yell, not a grunt, a scream. The kind of sound a man makes when his body tells his brain something his brain has never heard before. The sound cut through the gym like a knife through paper. Victor held the lock for 1 second, then released. Tyler staggered backward, clutching his arm to his chest. His eyes were wide, pupils dilated, breathing shallow and ragged. He looked at Victor the way prey looks at a predator it didn't know was in the tall grass. "We're done," Victor said. Not angry, not taunting. Flat. The voice of a man who had ended 1,000 training bouts at Quantico and never once needed to say it twice. Tyler didn't hear him. Or maybe he heard the words, and they simply didn't reach whatever part of his brain was still making decisions. Because Tyler Brooks had never been told, "We're done," by anyone in any gym. He'd never lost a round, never been thrown, locked, controlled, or made to scream on any mat in his entire 27 years. And something inside him broke. He rushed Victor again, this time with a flying knee, his signature. The move that had ended 11 tournament fights, the move that had built his highlight reel, his brand, his sponsorships, and his 200,000 followers. He launched off both feet with everything he had left, which wasn't much, but it was all he knew. Victor didn't catch it this time. He sidestepped, clean, 1 step. Tyler's knee hit nothing but air. His body sailed past Victor like a car missing an exit ramp, and before Tyler could land, before his front foot even touched the mat, Victor was behind him. One arm around Tyler's throat, not a choke, a control hold. The other hand cupped on the back of Tyler's head. Victor's knee drove into the small of Tyler's back. Tyler's feet left the ground. Then Victor took him down. Controlled. Deliberate. The way you set down something fragile. Carefully, because breaking it would be too easy and not worth the mess. Tyler's body met the mat chest first, and Victor's knee settled onto his spine between the shoulder blades, pinning him flat. Victor's hand pressed lightly against the back of Tyler's neck, not squeezing, not hurting, just present, the way a period sits at the end of a sentence. Tyler tried to push up, couldn't move. Tried to roll sideways, couldn't budge. His fingers clawed at the rubber mat, nails scraping blue. His legs kicked once, twice, then went still. His cheek was pressed flat against the surface, and from that angle, all he could see was the bottom of the crowd's shoes and the forest of phone screens recording every second of his face. Victor leaned down, close enough that only Tyler could hear. "You wanted to know what I do here every day." His voice was barely above a whisper. "Now you know." He held the pin for 3 full seconds. Then he stood, stepped back, offered his hand. Tyler didn't take it. He lay on the mat, chest heaving, staring at the rubber 2 inches from his eyes. His belt had come completely untied. It lay beside him on the mat like a shed skin, white and limp and meaningless. The gym was silent. Not the charged silence of anticipation, the deep, ringing silence that comes after something fundamental has changed, and every person in the room can feel it in their chest. Nobody clapped. Nobody cheered. Nobody quite knew what they had just watched. Victor Shaw picked up his water bottle, took a sip, wiped his forehead with the bottom of his t-shirt. Then he walked back to his corner and started unwrapping his hands, the same way he unwrapped them every morning, like it was just another Tuesday. The silence lasted 11 seconds. Someone counted later, watching the footage back. 11 seconds of nothing. No voices, no movement. Just the buzz of fluorescent lights and the sound of Tyler Brooks breathing on a mat. Then a voice cut through from the back of the crowd. "Gunny Shaw?" Victor's hands stopped mid-unwrap. His shoulders went still. It was a small movement, barely visible, but it was the first time all morning that Victor Shaw had looked like he'd been caught off guard. A man pushed through the circle. Early 40s, broad shoulders, barrel chest, high and tight haircut growing out just enough to show he'd been out of uniform for a few years, but not long enough to forget the habit. He wore a faded olive t-shirt and had a tattoo on his left forearm that matched the one on Victor's, only his was newer, sharper. The eagle still had its details. Garrett Hill, former corporal, United States Marine Corps, class of 2006. Gunnery Sergeant Victor Shaw. Garrett said it like he was reading from a citation, like the name itself was something that required standing straighter for. Quantico, Combatives Division, 2003 to 2015. Victor looked at Garrett. A flash of recognition crossed his face, quick, warm, and immediately controlled. "Garrett Hill, you were in my Tuesday rotation." "Yes, sir." "You couldn't throw a proper Osoto Gari to save your life." Garrett laughed. Short, sharp. The laugh of a man who remembered being humbled. "You made me do it 400 times until I could." The crowd was frozen, every head turning between Victor and Garrett like spectators at a tennis match played in a language they didn't speak. Garrett turned to face the gym. His voice was loud now. Not shouting, projecting. The way someone speaks when they need every ear in a room. For anyone who doesn't understand what just happened here, let me explain. He pointed at Victor, who was already shaking his head slightly, jaw tight, the look of a man who wanted this to stop. That man trained me, trained my entire platoon, trained thousands of Marines at the most advanced close combat facility in the United States military. Garrett pulled out his phone, scrolled for a few seconds, turned the screen toward the crowd. An old photograph, grainy, slightly overexposed, taken on a training field with red clay dirt. A younger Victor Shaw in woodland camouflage, demonstrating an arm lock on a Marine twice his size. Behind them, rows of recruits watching in formation. Marine Corps Martial Arts Program, MCMAP. This man held the highest instructor belt in the system, 6th degree. There may be 80 people alive who've earned that. He looked at Tyler, still on the mat, propped up on one elbow now, listening. You just asked a man who spent 30 years teaching Marines how to fight to spar you for laughs. The words landed like stones dropped in still water. Ripples spreading outward through the crowd, people looking at Victor, looking at the tattoo on his forearm, looking at the way he stood, feet apart, shoulders square, chin tucked, even now, even while unwrapping his hands at a gym bench. The stance that never turned off, because it had never been a stance. It was just how he was built. Tyler sat up slowly. His belt was still on the mat beside him. He didn't pick it up. He looked at Victor. Really looked. Maybe for the first time. Not at the gray t-shirt, not at the age, not at the skin color he'd spent weeks mocking. At the man. Why didn't you say something? Tyler's voice was hoarse, small. Why didn't you tell me who you were? Victor finished unwrapping his right hand, folded the wrap neatly, set it on the bench. Because the ones who talk about it the most, he said, usually did the least. The sentence landed in the gym like the last note of a song nobody wanted to end. Dale Perkins leaned against the wall and exhaled through his nose. Nancy Wallace put her hand over her mouth. Jake Whitmore lowered his phone for the first time all morning. Not to stop recording, but because his arm had gotten too heavy to hold up. Garrett Hill stood at attention. Old habit, couldn't help it. And Tyler Brooks sat on a blue mat with his black belt lying beside him and understood, for the first time in 27 years, the difference between being a fighter and being a warrior. The video went up that afternoon, not from Tyler's page, from a 19-year-old with a gym membership and a TikTok account who happened to be standing at the right angle with the right timing. Caption: Black Belt challenged the wrong old man. By midnight, 400,000 views. By morning, 2 million. The comments became their own battlefield. People tagging friends, arguing about fighting styles, writing paragraphs about respect and what it means to underestimate someone based on how they look or where they come from. Tyler's name spread fast. Screenshots of his old posts circulated everywhere. His levels to this game clips, his highlight reels, all of it recontextualized now by 30 seconds of footage showing him flat on his back with a 63-year-old man's knee on his spine. Tyler took his page down that night. First time in 4 years he'd gone dark. His students texted him. He didn't respond. His mother called twice. He let it ring both times. 3 days passed. The gym went back to normal. Dale Perkins bought a new wrench set. Nancy Wallace sorted the morning mail. The parking lot emptied of the news vans that had shown up on day 2. Victor Shaw came in at 6:30. Hit the bag, did his pull-ups, same as always. If the attention bothered him, he didn't show it. On the 4th morning, something changed. Victor was mid-wrap when the gym door opened at 5:58. Before the regulars, before the parking lot lights had fully warmed up. Tyler Brooks walked in. No dobok, no students, no camera. Gray hoodie, sweatpants, and running shoes that had never touched pavement. He walked to Victor's corner, stood there, hands in his pockets, looking at the floor. I owe you an apology. Victor kept rapping. Okay. Not just for the spar, for everything. The things I said, the way I treated you, He stopped, swallowed hard. I was wrong. About all of it. Victor finished his rap, looked at Tyler. I know. Would you be willing to teach me? Teach you what? Whatever it is you know that I don't. Victor looked at Tyler for a long time. At the kid underneath the ego and the belt and the brand. The kid who had never been broken before and didn't know yet that breaking was where the real building started. Show up tomorrow, 5 a.m. Don't bring your phone. Tyler showed up at 4:55. And the morning after that. And every morning for the rest of that month. No filming, no audience, no highlight reel. Just an old man and a young man, and a heavy bag that smelled like decades of sweat. Victor never called him son, never gave a speech, never told him a war story. He just showed Tyler how to wrap his hands correctly, and they started from there. Some lessons don't come with belts. The best ones never do.
So Tyler came back, no camera, no bells, no audience, just a young man ready to learn, starting with how to wrap his hands. Victor saw how the highest combat bells in the Marine Corps trained 4,000 Marines, survived Fallujah, and he never told a single sound in that town, not once, because Victor lives by one rule. If you have to tell people what you are, you properly aren't it anymore. That's the line that separates fighters from warriors. Fighter collect bells, warrior collect scars, and stay quiet about both. Tyler spent years building a brain around being undefeated. Victor spent 30 years building men who go into combat and come home alive. One needed the world to watch. The other just needed a bath and a pair of gloves. And that made me wonder what the difference between strength and the performance of strength. How many rooms have you gone into already knowing everything, only to realize you hadn't even started learning? If silence is where real power lives, what does all our noise say about us? Tell me in the comments. I read everyone. If this story stays with you, pass it on, subscribe. I'll see you next time. Some lessons don't come with bell. The best ones never do.